Deranged clowns, maniacal chefs, cannibalistic stalkers, and men in devil masks. Some seriously chilling villains dominated horror in 2022. For Jordan Peele's Nope, the creative team consulted PhD candidate and fish researcher Kelsey Rutledge to give their alien, the Occulonimbus edoequus, a unique design with realistic bodily functions. If you're curious as to why the alien's limbs billow on screen, that effect mirrors real cuttlefish. It's how cuttlefish balloon into gorgeous and trance-inducing states to attract prey. In a discussion with Nerdist, Rutledge opened up about the way the cuttlefish sometimes feels cloaked in invisibility, saying, "These animals and other cephalopods have color-changing pigment cells called chromatophores. It gives them this amazing ability to camouflage against any surface. This parallels the ability of Nope's creature to camouflage into the clouds." Peele borrowed elements of underwater life to gift audiences with a spectacular creature that feels familiar and otherworldly at the same time. Is it terrifying? Absolutely. However, outside of its unique physique and ravenous hunger, there isn't much else to scare us. The extraterrestrial is the space equivalent of walking into the woods and stumbling upon a grizzly bear. The only way to beat it is to never end up in its territory. Metaphorically though, Peele's UFO and Nope in general carries a lot of meaty questions about land ownership, colonizing, and capitalism's all-consuming hunger for spectacle. But as a monster, it seems fairly content to live apart from meddling humans obsessed with stealing its image for their financial gain. It's fair to let this creature, who only attacks when poked, get some snacks and rest, as no larger scheme is at play. 2022's Hellraiser vastly expands the mythos behind its lament configuration box and also crafted compelling Cenobite designs. Unlike Doug Bradley's stark and militant demeanor, Jamie Clayton's exquisite Hellpriest depicts a calculating and restrained villain. As director David Bruckner told Den of Geek, Jamie came out with something that was much more sensual. There's a curiosity to the character. She seems very, very intrigued by the inner workings of her subjects and what makes them tick, and given what she has on offer, her engagement is rather terrifying.
I don't want anything from you. Nothing.
Her timing as the Hellpriest is methodical, making each gesture and word feel like it has weight, and her patience knows no limit. Clayton makes you believe the lead Cenobite has all the time in the world to torture you and is waiting to discover the best option. Unlike previous iterations of the Hellpriest, this one doesn't mind making a deal. Hellraiser explored the idea of free will because the film focused on telling a disjointed narrative on addiction and recovery. Whether or not you'd like the outcome, there's still a chance you could bargain with the priest and survive, which limits her terror. If she was more unhinged with which rule she obeys or breaks, that'd dial up her villainous potential. Plus, she's incredibly easy to avoid if you just don't touch the lament configuration at all. Similar to the UFO in Nope and the Hellpriest in 2022's Hellraiser, Chrissy is another example of an avoidable evil. If you never want to end up eternally stuck in a haunted cabin in the woods, just don't enter the creepy decaying shack. Of course, Sean is not the type of washed-up YouTube personality to consider safety over clickable content. What follows next is a charming found-footage horror comedy film, critiquing the lengths people will go to find online popularity.
She's a strong, independent woman, and she's choosing to go alone.
What sets Chrissy's vengeful spirit apart is her commitment to her sinister gambit. She tricks Sean into cursing himself and plays with his very low self-esteem, pretending to be a fan of his channel so that she can gain his trust. She's relishing this bait-and-switch act, making her more conniving and dangerous than a summoned entity or creature attack. She's the paranormal embodiment of a cat playing with its dead food, and there's no way to outwit her on her terrain, as Sean painfully learns. Melanie Stone is fantastic in this insidious role and nails the script's sharp and comedic turns. Mark Rylance's Sully from director Luca Guadagnino's Bones and All perfectly demonstrates how terrifying a human being can be. Here, the villain doesn't wait to be discovered or summoned as Sully hunts for what he wants. By the film's end, it's unclear if Sully intended to eat Taylor Russell's Marin, raise her as a daughter, or have a romantic relationship with her. The fact that it feels like he could want a taste of any or all of the above is equally harrowing. The man is so lonely, he even follows her scent across the country. But nothing beats the first time Sully appears on screen. After Marin begins life on the road, we see the man in his signature top hat watching her. With each moment, he drifts closer, stalking Marin. After they share one meal, feeding on an elderly woman, his connection to her intensifies. Soon his obsession with her becomes his sole motivation. In his mind, he's owed her. However, he never shows remorse or shame at going to such extreme lengths to find her, like killing her boyfriend's sister to gain her attention. There's a diluted innocence to Sully, acting like a hurt boy while he invades everyone's boundaries. He's a predator who seemingly believes he's the prey, and his disconnect from reality makes him all the more dangerous. In Travis Stevens' third feature film, A Wounded Fawn, Bruce is a serial killer with a taste for the finer things in life. He entraps art curator Meredith under the guise of a romantic weekend at a cabin in the woods. Obviously, this should be a huge red flag, as all horror fans know that nothing good happens at a cabin in the woods. What happens next is a surrealist-fueled nightmare. After Bruce kills Meredith, he faces the wrath of Furies, condemning him for being a murderer, a liar, and a thief. They ask him to confess his sins, but he's incapable of doing it. Instead, he blames another entity for his crimes, even though we've seen him murder with full possession of his mind. At the film's end, he'd rather impale himself than admit he kills women because he enjoys it. His doe-eyed denial is a ruse to manipulate others so he can take control, power, life, and beauty away from women, which is nothing short of terrifying.
You're scared.
Yeah, I'm scared.
The Black Phone antagonist, the Grabber, is infinitely horrifying due to how strategic and time-consuming his kill plans are. With a van full of black balloons, the Grabber takes his time to tease, feed, and abuse the young boys he captures. He has made up a set of rules, and if young boys don't follow them, they'll die. However, as the Black Phone shows us, breaking the rules is also the only way to possibly survive. In the Black Phone, the Grabber takes delight in robbing hope from his victims and pushing them to disobey him. He'll leave his cellar door open, waiting for the young boys to think they can escape. However, the Grabber waits upstairs to punish them with a belt beating. He knows who he is, but he manages to hide his dark identity from his dim-witted brother. A particularly disturbing question to consider is how the Grabber was able to kill a slew of young boys before capturing Finney.
I was really starting to like you.
Directed by Scott Derrickson, The Black Phone shows the dangers of suburbia in the late 70s when latchkey kids, pre-internet or cell phones, were left to figure out the world for themselves with minimal adult supervision. Just thinking about Tim Roth's David Moore in Resurrection should send shivers down your spine. While most villains enact physical acts of violence towards their prey, none are as psychologically disturbing as David. Resurrection follows Margaret, who runs into her mentally abusive ex, David. Even the way he debuts on screen is ominous. He begins showing up in places she frequents but doesn't introduce himself, slightly hiding just out of view, so Margaret isn't quite sure if it's him. Of course, it is, but he disappears before anyone, including her suffocated daughter Abby, can see him. Abby soon resents Margaret for her paranoia, even though she's right to be scared. Of course, David's mission is simple. He wants to destroy Margaret's independence. What follows is a diabolical free-for-all and one of the best on-screen depictions of PTSD shown in cinema. Moore becomes the living embodiment of gaslighting. Whether or not it's true is unclear, but he even convinces Margaret that he ate their baby Ben and could hear the infant cry inside him. But the story takes a backseat to Rebecca Hall's impressive turn as a woman trying to maintain a grip on her sanity, overcome her abuser, and keep her fractured family together.
I'm the only one that can see you.
Written and directed by Hannah Barlow and Kane Siness, Sissy is a delightful horror comedy about influencer culture and how we use social media to reinvent ourselves, even if it means glossing over a harmful past. After a decade, Cecilia, also known as Sissy, runs into her childhood best friend Emma. Emma invites Cecilia to a weekend getaway in a cabin in the woods. At first, Emma's new friends are skeptical about this seemingly random person showing up to their party. However, once they learn she's a guru-like influencer on social media, they decide to give her a chance. But it doesn't take long for the group of friends to ask why Cecilia and Emma drifted apart, especially when Cecilia's high school bully is there, passive-aggressively antagonizing her. As Cecilia faces more scrutiny, she breaks down and abandons her light and love point of view for some good old-fashioned slasher vengeance. Somehow, the seriously unhinged Cecilia justifies every murderous action and spins it into a self-discovery and believe-in-yourself narrative on Instagram. For instance, moments after seeing someone die, she shares a self-affirmation post. After the disastrous events unfold, she convinces herself she's still in the right, using a murderous night to boost her followers. Sissy also ends on a hilarious upbeat note, showing how the feedback loop of social media praise can distort reality and our perception of ourselves. It would be difficult to be quite as unhinged as Chef Julian in The Menu, played superbly by Ralph Fiennes. The accomplished chef decides to take out the resentment he feels regarding his career on a group of elite guests attending his restaurant. As well as being delicious, Chef Julian's multi-course dinner psychologically destroys and physically abuses his guest, and literally turns them into s'mores in an explosive final act.
I am a monster.
Unlike some horror movie villains, Chef Julian shows more restraint in his murderous schemes. At one point in the film, he admits to his guests that he's been planning this experience, which includes killing himself, his entire crew, and all of his guests for months. Director Mark Mylod spares no punches in showing how quietly disturbed Chef Julian is, but what's most chilling is how he manages to convince his staff to jump on board his killer scheme. While there is a militant-like dogma in fine cuisine kitchens, people are autonomous beings. In spite of this, Julian somehow convinced everyone in his kitchen to play along, but we don't see that process on screen. However, we're shown that it only takes a whisper from Chef to Nicholas Holt's Tyler to make the latter take his own life. Julian's methods of manipulation and persuasion put him a cut above the rest in this class-conscious satire about consumers, art, and what we hunger for at the expense of others. It's impossible to overstate how much of a deranged Queen Isabel Fuhrman's Esther is. Debuting more than a decade after Orphan, many fans were dubious about how Orphan First Kill would work, especially as the first film relied on the delightful surprise that the murderous Esther is really a 30-year-old Estonian woman. It was hard to believe that a sequel could top the first film's big reveal. Of course, doubters were wrong. Director William Brent Bell delivers a delicious film that's campy, fun, and brutal. In this film, Esther's secret is revealed in the first act to her adopted mother, Trisha, played by Julia Stiles. But due to Trisha's own family secret, she tells Esther to keep her identity under wraps and pretend to be their missing daughter. Orphan First Kill becomes a battle of wits and brawn between Trisha and Esther, but what gives Esther a leg up is her childlike identity. No one expects a kid to be capable of murder, and Esther uses that to her advantage again and again throughout the film. Basically, the long-awaited sequel to Orphan shows that Isabel Fuhrman is a force to be reckoned with. If there was ever a soul who could defeat Esther, our money is on Mia Goth's Pearl, appearing in both X and Pearl. Like Esther, Pearl touts an overblown sense of self-worth, believing that she deserves all she wants in life, no matter the cost. From killing her mother to murdering her sister-in-law to euthanizing her father, Pearl will seemingly do anything if it means she has the chance to dance on a stage.
I want to be loved from as many people as possible.
In fact, Pearl's desire to be a star is so strong that it overwrites any other logic, which is alarming for many reasons, but mostly for how unpredictable it makes her behave. If you were standing in the way of Pearl's goals, you wouldn't know until it was too late, leaving her no choice but to murder you. In many ways, Pearl is an incredibly powerful horror movie villain due to her dogged nature and commitment to achieving her goals. When her rage becomes triggered, she's an unstoppable force, even in her elder years in X. Challenge her and you'll be fed to her loyal gators. David Howard Thornton's Art the Clown is the kind of villain you never want to meet. The second you open your door to Art the Clown trick-or-treating, you're done for, especially because he doesn't mind turning your head into a bowl for candy. Technically, Art can die, but that doesn't mean he'll stay dead, as we see with his mysterious resurrection in Terrifier 2.
That's disgusting. Creative, but disgusting.
Like Chrissy in Deadstream, Art shows malicious joy in brutalizing his victims, toying with their sense of reality and flaying their skin. However, he's an entity that appears when you least expect him to show up. You can't avoid what you don't know is coming, making this killer clown entity a whimsically sinister force. Unlike some other horror antagonists, he doesn't have a rhyme or reason for killing. Instead, he seems to enjoy murder and surprising others with how demented his kills can be. Unless you have a magical sword, you're doomed the second Art the Clown enters the picture. You Won't Be Alone is a harrowing tale about our need for community and acceptance, and explores these ideas through Maria, also known as the Wolf-Eateress, a scorned witch searching for a companion. At the film's start, Maria finds the young Navina. To save her life, Navina's mother promises to give her child to Maria once she turns 16. The Wolf-Eateress agrees, but not before stealing her voice. She transforms Navina into a witch so she can shapeshift like her. All of this is done in the hope that Navina will be a quasi-child for Maria. You Won't Be Alone gets particularly harrowing when it comes to how a witch's powers work. To shapeshift, you have to kill or find the dead body and push their entrails into your chest, taking on their essence for as long as the entrails are inside you. Once an older Navina, played by Noomi Rapace, learns how to do this, she abandons Maria, causing the witch to haunt her and kill off anyone she loves. What's most haunting here is that you'll never know who Maria is unless she wants you to know. She could transform into anyone you trust after killing them, if it meant she received your attention. The film is a testament to how isolation and loneliness can drive others into madness, a theme that hits harder because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Incantation is one of those found footage films where even talking about it makes you wonder if you're helping to spread its curse. Throughout the Taiwanese horror film, we're told that we're helping Ronan to cure her daughter from an evil entity's grasp known as the Mother Buddha. But as the film continues, we learn that Lee Ronan is not at all innocent in the matter. Years prior, she and her Ghostbusters-like crew broke into a shrine that they were explicitly warned not to go near. They knocked over artifacts, crashed into mirrors, and entered a cave where the Mother Buddha had successfully been kept at bay from spreading her chaotic reign of evil. Of course, the more you know of her, the more you'll suffer. Like Ringu, the terror comes from people spreading the curse. In fear for her life, Ronan recites the incantation that appeases her, thinking it'll weaken the curse over time, and coaching her daughter to do it too. However, all this does is kill anyone who learns about Mother Buddha. What's worse is when the film breaks the fourth wall, we learn the blessing she's been telling the viewer to recite throughout the film is a cursed incantation too, damning everyone in the audience in the process. A sentence like this is inescapable, and no one can survive the vengeful and chaotic goddess.